Good morning. This is week 10 introductory video for Introduction to Philosophy. Hi, my name is Mark Thorsby. Today I'm giving a quick introductory video for what we'll be doing in this week, week 10 of my Introduction to Philosophy course. We're continuing our discussion of ethics. For those of you who've been with us, last week we discussed we had 3 lectures. The first lecture was on the idea that ethics is disturbing, and we looked at Thomas Nagel's essay, War and Massacre. In our second essay, our second lecture here, we looked at the subject of how we ought to face the world, and we looked at the ethical sort of frameworks that are developed by the Epicureans, the Epicurus, and the Stoics, and primarily we looked at the work of Epictetus, though we did remark about the role of Marcus Aurelius in Stoic development. And then finally, our last lecture, we looked at Immanuel Kant because we wanted to ask the question, well, when ought we to act in the world, and how are we supposed to know what our duties or our responsibilities are? And Immanuel Kant provides a framework for us to do that. So that's what we've done so far in ethics. This week we're continuing the discussion, and we begin our first session here on Aristotle's ethics, his virtue tradition. And the title for that lecture is The Ethos of Ethics, the character of ethics. And one of the questions we'll be looking at there is, what does it mean, for instance, to talk about can we have an objectivity in ethics? And while there's significant debate about this in philosophy, I think that Aristotle does in fact provide a very good framework for parsing out the question of objectivity and perhaps certainty in ethics. Now, I don't think that it's a slam down case, but I think that he does provide an excellent framework. So we begin there on Monday. I also take a look at Thomas Nagel's essay, Aristotle on Eudaimonia. On Wednesday here, we move forward and we're looking at the question of alienation in society. And we'll be looking at Rousseau's discussion of alienation from the second book of the Social Contract, as well as Immanuel Kant's An Answer to the Question, What is Enlightenment? This is a great session. I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit, where we discuss paternalism, the limit of government, things of that sort. And then on Friday, we're going to move in and we'll discuss utilitarianism, and primarily the work of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. And so that's what we have coming up this week. It's an excellent, exciting week where we look at the virtue tradition, the role that maybe we might talk about social virtue, and then finally on our last session, maybe something like social calculus. And so all very pertinent and important moments in our discussion, in our survey of ethics here. Also this week, please make sure to hit up the discussion board if you're in the class, that is. For those people who are watching this on YouTube, who aren't in the class, you don't have to worry about this clearly. But our discussion is on the paradox of the liar. The paradox of the liar is quite simple, but sort of convoluted and difficult to wrap your head around. But it begins with an assumption of what these two basic principles. The first principle is called the Law of Non-Contradiction. The Law of Non-Contradiction is the argument that, in essence, not the argument, I'm sorry, it's the principle that says that something cannot both be and not be at the same time, in the same way, and in the same respect. Let me say that one more time. The law of non-contradiction is that something cannot both be and not be at the same time, in the same way, and in the same respect. So for instance, here's my coffee cup. I can't say that this coffee cup is both here and not here at the same time, in the same way, in the same respect. That would be a contradiction, and actually a sort of convolution of reason. The second sort of principle to understand here is the law of excluded middle, also referred to, for instance, as the principle of bivalence. And that's the idea that every proposition is either true or false, but there's no in between. It has to either be true or false. So then the paradox of the liar, at least the way we have it written in our book, is this. If you have a statement where the statement is, this statement is false, right? How do you make sense of that statement? Because on the one hand, that statement, according to the law of excluded middle, that statement is either going to be true or false. So if I say this statement is false, is true, then that means it's false, which means it's actually false. But wait, now it looks like we're breaking the law of non-contradiction because it's both true and false simultaneously. How do we make sense of that? And so that's what we're doing. It's a pretty interesting sort of puzzle. Um, and it's one of the things that's interesting to it that I find interesting about the paradox of the liar is it seems to resemble, for instance, the skeptic's claim, right? Moral skeptic, for instance. What about the person who says you can never have moral knowledge, right? That seems to apply on the one hand that is a claim of moral knowledge, but yet it's saying that there is no moral knowledge. It seems to be the same sort of thing. So as we consider ethics and we consider the paradox of the liar, I'd like you to, in the discussion board, remark about, well, you'll see there's a series of questions, but really think through, one, what exactly does this paradox mean? And number two, assuming that the paradox is not just a complete sort of ablution of reason, what does it mean exactly such that we can actually reason that out? Are we actually breaking the law of non-contradiction? Because if we were, it wouldn't be reasonable, we would say. So how do we make sense of that? So that's what we're looking at in our weekly discussion. Pretty interesting stuff. So definitely make sure to do your readings. Remember, you can, for the online reading section on Wednesday, the Rousseau and the Kant, those are located in your course library, and hit up the discussion board. Just a reminder, in 2 weeks here, you will have a paper due, the second response paper, and I'll be getting the rest of your papers graded. I again apologize for not getting everything graded as quickly as I can. It's just been a pretty crazy time for me. But I'm going to be getting all that stuff together. Okay, so make sure to hit up all that stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or drop a post on the questions discussion board. Have a great week and enjoy the lectures that are coming up. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye.